All right, folks, welcome on back for another fantastic edition of our Traders Talk Workshop this Monday, June 23rd. Great to have all of our students and members alike back joining us inside our live trading room. I see Frank here, Kevin, Kathleen, Leda, Michael, George. Great to have all of us just joining us here. Give me a quick moment here. I got something going on here on the webcam. There we go. Had to do a little flip around right there. There you go. That's how we normally like it. Great to have all of us back on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, the works, wherever you may be residing here this afternoon. It is bright here in my home office. It's as bright as my future. Great to have all of us here down below at Cyber Trading You. Just as always, if you are new to our stream, new to our platform, our social media channels, just hit the follow, hit the subscribe button right down below. If you're on YouTube, you got that big ass red button right down there. Hit that button just to follow us each and every day live, Monday to Friday. And here on Monday afternoons, we do a live workshop. Great to have our students. So as I had said, Ishan, Frank, Phil, and all of us just here otherwise inside our live trading room. They get the full commentary all throughout the day, audio, chat, you name it. And actually, just before, my guy Andrea just chatted us here saying INDO playing at $7 for a while. He actually wrote that about 3 minutes, 5 minutes before we started this workshop. So great call out. Andrea, Rich was on top of it also, but one of our longtime students here, Andrea, playing at $7 for a while. So, hey, with that, obviously it's moved up well. Let's actually start off by going over this trade. Why not, right? So there's a lot that we'll get to. We'll talk about Tesla, of course, making a big pop today, coming off news with the robo-taxi stuff. We'll talk a little bit about just the overall markets, talk about Israel-Iran stuff, just how that's going to affect the markets this week going forward. We just came off the Fed meeting. They left the rates unchanged. Trump wants Powell fired. We'll talk a little bit about that. Bitcoin actually broke below 100,000 actually over the weekend. We'll dip into that if we have time. But let's actually just go over this trade right now. Let's rip it here on this INDO. So this is one that we've done well on of late. I mean, even before this one move today, this one late morning, early afternoon move live, we've done very well on this stock. Largely because of the Israel-Iran conflict with oil and anytime there's geopolitical tension in the Middle East, Europe, whatever, Russia, Ukraine, we saw these stocks make a nice move. This INDO, Indonesia Energy Corp, HUSA is another one, Houston American Energy, that's up a little bit this afternoon so far. USEG a little bit also. This will go with them every now and then. These are not swing trades, though. I mean, I just want to point that out. One look at the long-term chart will just say enough for you. But these are good day trades. These are really good day trades. Right now, there's 9. We called out earlier this morning. These stocks tend to move together. Well, for right now, let's just go right into INDO, recap why this made the move that it made, go over the morning pop that this had, go over why it's breaking out now. Maybe there's news out involved with it, but we don't trade the news. We trade the volume, the volatility, and more so than anything, the trend, right? So how about this? Let me just ask this to begin. We just came off class just a moment ago. Ishan, I know, is there, and Margaret, and a bunch of us just in the phase 2 stock course. Anytime you're looking at a graph like this, who's winning the battle, right? Simple question. We should know the answer to this right here. Who's winning the battle when you're looking at a graph like this, especially the last 30 minutes? Simple one, right? The buyers, absolutely. All of us just saying here buyers. Now, what color comes up on time and sales when the buyers are taking over? When the buyers are in control, it's going up. Seeing green on the tape, right? Well, hey, that's the process that I have in my head when I'm planning a trade out. So this was moving in pre-market. If you were focused on this trade going into the opening bell, then you had a little bit more time to prep up and know where your big support, big resistance levels truly are. Sharon asking here, should I get in? I appreciate her asking that right now because as a trial member, we do want you to sit back and not trade. If you're just testing our room out for this week, it's best to just sit back. Just know that this is something that's even remotely possible, let alone doable on a daily basis, if not just weekly basis here. So this is not the first time this stock has ever ran for us. It likely won't be the last. There's likely going to be other trades out there that we'll be calling out today, tomorrow, this week, next week. So as a trial member, it's even best to just sit back and just enjoy the ride while you're here and see if this is something you're interested in doing down the line there. So let's actually show Sharon here at least, what we do to identify those big icebergs and know where our levels are ahead of time. So where do we see the big iceberg? Roughly around what price do we have this beat red line, this dark orange beat red line? And if you're joining us on social media too, would love for you to participate as well. At Cyber Trading You if you're joining us on YouTube. Just answer this for me here too. Where do you see the dark orange or red line stretching across this giant page? What do we got? 680, 675. A lot of us saying I had to kind of zoom in there, right? I mean, you're on point, right? 680, you got one here, but this is the larger of the two, $6.75, 674, 675. We got the microscope here. But pretty much, right? This ended up making a nice push to begin. Well, it blasted through that order. It broke right through it. How can you tell? How do you know? Well, you could see the squiggly line kind of crashed into the horizontal red here. That's one way. It like actually hit it, touched it. Now you can see a big green volume bar down below, right down below there. But even easier. Check this on the far right side of my screen, the CVP column. So you have right here just a big discrepancy between the buying at this price, the amount of volume that got filled at this price versus anything above it, below it, etc. So hey, what happens though? It looks like there's a new seller that does show up at $7, 6.99, like right there. This is all before the market even opens, by the way. This is at 9:17 in the morning. So if you're looking at this moving up to begin, you're like, ooh, okay, well, where are my levels? Where's my buying? Where have I seen resistance getting blasted through? Well, right here. I would say right here at 675. So when the market opened up at 9:30, right? We typically wait the first 3 to 5 minutes. That's where this becomes a little annoying, where I guess it popped right away. And it made a hell of a run to begin, but I'm staying true to my rules. I'm a stickler to this rule here, folks. I'm not jumping into shit the first 3 to 5 minutes. So it sucks to say this is going without you here. It happens, right? If you were in class with me earlier, you heard me talk so much about like, oh, IBO, this was actually much easier than this looks. Well, yeah, because it happened at 10, 12 in the morning, much well within our prime time hour of trading. So, you know what? The INDO took off insta right at 9:30. Yeah, we missed out on this first pop because it happened within the first 5 minutes. But at the end of it, I don't think that was the last of this move here, right? As we know, it ended up coming back up just before here. So what happened on this trade altogether from the morning? Well, you wait the first 5 minutes, starts coming back down. So that's kind of a red flag to begin. If this makes such a nice elaborate run to start, and then it wipes out nearly all of its gains that it just had, that's a little excessive. But one thing you do want to see at least is to try and have this 675 resistance that it did break over. I would want that to flip into support. I would. So maybe worst case scenario, like if it drops down here and it goes under then over, like we just talked about in our class, our paid class, the phase 2 stock course, there is a chance for this to make a better move. Well, it's trying here, but it's not going under over. It's just kind of hovering. Then next thing you know, you start seeing these sell orders show up here, even to begin here at like 697. This order on the bid that shows up, well, it got broken through. So unfortunately, support was not holding where maybe at first you'd think that it can, but the longer it's just teeter-tottering here, that's already a red flag to start. And these sell orders here that popped up just help push this down a little bit more to begin. This one also. Now, I stand true by that level, though, the 675, at least from pre-market. There's a reason that order got broken through to begin. So it took a long time. This was garbage for a little while. We were in class just before, but if you were not a student, if you're not in class joining us, and if you were trading in our room, you probably were not looking at this. Like, let's just be real. You probably were not looking at this, from 10:30 to 11:30. It's like kind of garbage looking, just it's flat. If you like the stock, maybe it's in your wheelhouse, maybe it's in your rotation, you click through it eventually. But the more you're watching this do nothing, you're just wasting your time. There's plenty of other trades that are moving a lot better. Just before, we just said Tesla is still holding well. So just going back to INDO, this became a better trade once it rebroke resistance. Once it rebroke above this 675 level, you have the VWAP here too. That helps. That helps the cause. So even with this resistance at 7, yeah, this is still resistance next, and it did hold it at first. But because of the pre-market level that stood out here, 675 to start, I'm looking at that as my major point of interest if I'm looking for A, resistance to flip into support, or B, the better of the two, just to have a nice run. So this was a good move just a moment ago before we started our workshop. Now what happens? Because, hey, this is coming down almost as fast as it just popped for us here, right? As I've been flapping my gums, this thing just fell off a cliff. So what gives? Well, we have these sell orders that showed up even first here at 720. They actually laddered up. They ticked up in price here towards 760. A new one here now at 750. So you got a stack that just showed up a moment ago. Now, the key, though, is that if this wants to have any remote chance of moving better this afternoon, it just simply needs to stay over 675. To me, at least. I mean, 7 would be even nicer at this point because this is the more recent resistance. This is the more recent level that it broke over in this time frame. But worst case, like I would just want to see 675 materialize as that support. So even with these orders that did pop up, we'll see what happens coming up. Just give this about 10, 15 minutes. We'll come back to this trade. We'll come back to this trade in just a moment. Just check in, see where it's at. But for right now, yeah, I'm going to just draw a good old line at 675. My Powerball number for this afternoon on this trade. So 675, got to see that at the least hold as support. Maybe higher, though, from here. All right, so the INDO, good call out from Andrea, but it's unfortunate that this shook back down as fast. It's not surprising, though. It's just, I mean, just get a load of this chart. I mean, lower highs collectively here, but just for every time it popped up, came back down very quickly the next day. I mean, just how about same day, though? How about just same day? So this is as volatile on the drop as it was on the run up. That's all. All right, so let's get to, how about this? A little participation here. A little participation here from all of us. YouTube, if you're on YouTube right now, I want you to answer this for me. If you're inside our live trading room, I want you to answer this for me here too. And we'll get to Ishan here in just a moment. But what would you want me to rather go over coming up right now? HIMS or Tesla? Real quick, lightning round. What do you want? HIMS or Tesla? What do you say? HIMS or Tesla? What do you want me to go over next? A couple of us here on YouTube saying Tesla. You got Margaret here saying HIMS. Larry saying Tesla. Debbie Tesla. Ron Tesla. Lynn Tesla. Holy shit, a lot of us Tesla. All right. We're a new Tesla. Jeez, don't have to yell at me. No, I'm kidding. I'm teasing. So let's do Tesla first. It was kind of a hypothetical question there because we're basically going over both. We're going to cover both here today. But naturally, we like when stocks go up, right? So it's a little bit more exciting to talk about Tesla's move up today as it is to maybe talk about him just getting demolished. So why is Tesla up right now, guys? What's the news? What's the news out on Tesla? Shout out here, Patrick, joining us on YouTube here this afternoon. We'll get to HIMS in just a bit, my man. But what's the news out on Tesla? Robo-taxi launch. Absolutely. All of us here saying the robo-taxis. How about this? Do we like them? Do we not like them? What's your opinion on the robo-taxis right now, guys? We're all different human beings in this game together, so we all got different thoughts, different personalities. What are your thoughts on the robo-taxis? You like them? You don't like them? Carrie, no, but they're fascinating. Scott says they're the future. Ishan likes them. Uday, afraid of them. Sam says too dangerous. Debbie likes them. You got a mixed bag, right? I just asked to ask. Now, hey, let's just put it in this situation, right? Let's say that you're anti-robo-taxi, and let's say you're anti-Elon and you're a Democrat. Let's just like paint the picture as truthfully as we could point it out to be. You should not be trading the news. Trade the chart. Don't trade the news. This is where you have to put personal bias aside, if anything. So with the news coming out, even if you were to not like Elon or not like the robo-taxis, it's the future, right? There are things I don't like that are getting more popular over time, right? So even if you're anti-robo-taxi, like, all right, well, the street likes it. There's a lot of talk on Twitter about it, a lot of talk on social media about it, even if you are not on social media. Read a good old newspaper, right? It's in there. Talking all about the robo-taxi launch today. And it's been in the topic of conversation for a while now. even on the downside of it, with like the thought of accidents that happen, like sometimes they'll like get into an accident a little bit here or there, goes off the road or off the course a little bit of where it should be going in. I've seen a couple of videos viral that come out, right? So it's not a perfect product, but even if you were scared of it, thought it was dangerous, that doesn't mean that you should be shorting this, my friends, right? It doesn't mean that you should be trying to bet against this move. Now, here's what I mean. This is like how we kind of focus on this as a trade. What's the direction of this stock? Of like this chart here, like on my screen, look at my screen. What's the direction of these candles? What are we going in? Up, down, flat. What do we got? Up, right? Simple enough, right? Now let's compare it to, I don't know, I don't even know how Palantir did today. I have no idea. Didn't even care to check. Well, hey, from 7 in the morning to here, this is not like screaming up. I mean, almost every one of us wrote up just before on Tesla. If I were to ask you what the trend is of this stock leading into the open, it's a lot more reasonable to say flat here for this trade, right? For this trade, flat. I mean, it could be higher lows, but it's like not screaming going up. It's not clean on the way up there. Every one of us wrote up when I asked what the trend was here from like 7 o'clock going into the market open, right? Yeah, maybe it's topping off around like 850, but up. So we're seeing buying pressure kicking in, right? The question will be, where is the buying pressure coming in from? That's what we need to figure out the answer to. And hey, we know it popped right out the gate this morning, at least within the first 10 minutes, maybe even within the first 5 minutes, but we'll see. All right. How about this? Do you see an orange line that this stock is breaking above? Do you see an orange line that this stock is passing over, breaking over on my screen? Do you see an orange line that the stock is breaking above right at this sequence here from 7 a.m. Eastern all the way to basically 9:15? A number of us are saying 326. I don't see that. I don't see that as much. There's no orange line that this stock is breaking over. That's the question. Remember, we're asking about, is there any orange line that this stock is breaking above? Above. Is there any? Farzad, Clarence, Margaret, Lynn. At least for my how I have my picture oriented. I know it's easy for me to play magician here. I'm like, pulling the strings here, but it's true. If I were to zoom in, I'm sure I could find something. But our whole philosophy at CTU is to follow the big levels, follow the big money, right? All right. So out of all the orange lines that you see here on this page, which of these orange lines is the stock breaking over? I don't see any here. I don't see any of these here, right? Nothing. Now, if I were to ask the question, different question here, if I were to ask, hey, where do we have resistance on this page? 328, 330, though. 330 is your larger level here, right? $10 level, decade level number there, right? So, you know what? We have resistance on this trade. And don't get me wrong, it's going upward. But in relation to the resistance that's shown here, I'm not seeing much buying pressure pushing this up. Now, why is that important? Because if there was, then I would look for resistance to flip into support. But what happens if this stock blasts off right away? Well, that's where we would have to look for resistance to flip into support. But at 330, though. So I don't have that much evidence here to my liking. Maybe if I go let's go all the way back. Let's go all the way back. Yeah, I mean, you could even see here, this doesn't test or touch or break over 328. There's no buying interest here at this point. So don't get me wrong, it's going up here in pre-market. Buyers, I'm assuming, are winning a battle. I just don't have my definitive buying pressure point here. There's an order on the bid that shows up. Okay, that's cool. But I still want to wait the first 5 minutes, wait to see what happens. And this is where we can get a nicer run. So check this out. Market opens up, breaks out right away. I mean, it breaks over 330. It breaks over 332, 333, 335. And, granted, it starts slowing down once it keeps breaking these webs of resistance, but it's eventually to say that we get resistance to flip into a support. It's not all the way down at 330, like 330 bucks, the level that we were looking at here initially. It doesn't drop all the way into that, right? Because you could tell here, it kind of drops to a low of like 330 and 93 cents. It doesn't drop low enough to make my under and over from this, the 330 level. So if you were looking for that, it's kind of, you're left in the dust a little bit. You're waiting, you're waiting. Oh, come on, please. You're so close. And it doesn't make that test of, potential support at this price. But this is where now let's kind of just ask the question of, well, why is that the case? Why did this not hit 330? Why was it strong enough to actually drop to like 331, 330 and some pennies there? Well, it looks like we had some good volume getting filled at the 330. I like that here at least. It just doesn't drop low enough. Your next big volume point here, I'd say, isn't even the 331. I'd probably just say 332. Now, what that means is that when it comes down here, I don't really have a great level for me to still just jump in at this sequence because I'm looking probably for a little bit more down to that 330. Doesn't give it to me. And there's nothing really at 331 that's like, a great level that we just saw. So as it begins to revert back up a bit, that's where you could use 332 as your, level. That's where you could then say, okay, if it can build over this level instead, 332, then there's that chance for that higher high. Easy to say that in hindsight, Captain Hindsight speaking a bit, and it actually made one more dip down first, but still got you what you wanted to see. The first test bounced well, and then even off the second time, it actually moved up higher. But, if you wanted to know why this didn't drop all the way down to 330 here, where we had like definitive resistance, okay, have resistance flip into support, well, it kind of just hung a little bit higher. Nothing here I would have been as jumpy to take the trade from. But hey, you know what? It holds a higher low off of that $332 price, which again, we said that there was some good volume that kicked in there initially. Let's hide that opening print there in 1 second. Yeah, look at this. 330, that CVP spike. Not as much at 331. So that's what I'm telling you. Like, yeah, I guess it bottomed out there in that little dip of support, but 330 and then there 332 were your better levels to work with on this trade. So just for the Tesla, at least, that would have been my better entry to look for. Unfortunately, not from 330, but from the 332 here. Now, let me ask, as we talk about, these dollar levels, right? I think one of us wrote it earlier, the whole number levels. Yeah, absolutely. And especially for the real cheap stocks, the more expensive of a stock as you get, you're not as inclined to focus on literally every $1. Check book maps, see where those real icebergs actually are. Think about the US dollar bills, right? We just talked about the $1 bill. What's the next dollar bill higher from $1, guys? Don't give me the $2 bill. $2 bill I love, but we're not going to use that here. $5 bill, right? So that means basically with Tesla, I'm focused on $5 prices, incremental prices, even more so. 325, 330, which would have been great, just didn't get low enough. After that, though, 335, and seemingly as a resistance, the more that this keeps poking resistance, you should be getting that continuation. So it looks like it tries it here, false breakout right at 938 and came back down. The more times a stock is nipping and testing resistance, it's showing that there's buying interest at that price. I mean, hey, trust me, a stock does not need to hit a penny level price for it to serve its job as resistance. If there's a giant iceberg order out there and no one agrees to buy it, there's no buying pressure whatsoever, then it's going to hold and the stock's going to drop from it. All right, well, the more times that a stock is at least nipping above that iceberg level, there is just more and more buying pressure on mounting and accumulating. So just the more times that you're seeing it do that in a smaller compression, I'm just saying it's not too surprising that it ran higher. This is at 9:45 in the morning, right? I know you know this. I'm just going to ask it so we get the full house to answer here. Full house here. I want all of us. What time is reversal time? What time is reversal time, my friends? Certainly not 9:45 in the morning. So there should be a lot of confidence in a potential trend up higher because hey, we're after the first 5 minutes, but we're certainly well before 10:30 in the morning. So we got room. You know what I mean? Chop chop. Let's see this big move shortly after. And it definitely made a nice run. It gave you exactly what you wanted to see pretty much. You could talk about those $5 and $10 levels. 335, 340, 345, 350, et cetera, et cetera. Use those to your liking. So, it's just a little bit easier to manage the trade once it's already off and running for you. But there were a couple of good levels that this stock broke out from. The whole launch with Tesla and their robo taxis here this week. I can only imagine this will lead to a better swing move over time. It has been a very good move since basically late April, if I'm not mistaken, maybe the beginning of May. But otherwise, though, where are the real buyers and sellers coming in from? If you're looking for a day trade like this, an intraday trade, well, hey, this 332 became a much better level. It took a little time for it to materialize, not too long, but this played out perfectly. After the first 5 minutes right here, entry, reversal time around 10:30, it went even a little afterwards, gave you more than what you were asking for. So this played out really nicely here. All right. So ideally, and we just talked about this in our class, I'm not going to recite exactly what we just taught in a full 60-minute class right here. But if I'm looking for a long, if I'm trying to buy a stock, I'm looking for a trend upward. Like 99% of the time, I'm looking for a trend up to begin. Where's my resistance that got broken over already? If I can't answer that question, the question would be then just where is my resistance that the stock could try and break above? And go from there. Now, I bring that to your attention because, well, you know, so HIMS today tanked, right? You knew that HIMS dropped the second that we called it out in our room. You knew that some sort of news came out. And it's not normal to see a stock drop about 4 or 5 points within one candle here in pre-market. Figure some sort of news came out. If you're more up to date on your earnings calendar, you know that this was not earnings based. You're like, oh shoot, something had to have happened. Maybe an analyst gave a down rating, or they, maybe insiders sold a big portion of their position from over the weekend. Who knows? Well, pretty much the news that came out was that Novo ended their partnership with HIMS, reportedly terminated its collaboration with the company. I got all sorts of different headlines here we can kind of go through, but I'll just show this one at least for right now. Now, what this indicates and what this means is that HIMS is no longer available to sell like the actual brand Wegovy. So I think that they're able to sell their own, which is not the Novo, label of Wegovy. But when this happens, well, you have to think about a few things. Okay, that's not good news. So there's a good chance that you're going to continue to see this drop. So this could very well be a great short. I know one of our students cleaned up on this trade in pre-market. Alex, he crushed it on this trade, I think from like 53. But let's just look at the long-term graph before today. Before today. This is the long-term graph before today's move, before the news that came out. Would you say before today's move that this is a healthy chart or an unhealthy chart? Before today. Don't mind what happened this morning. Regardless of that, from the end of Friday last week, would you say that this long-term graph is healthy or unhealthy? A lot of us saying pretty healthy, right? Yeah, this is like not all of the historical charting that we can go through, but this is like the important stuff. This is the all-time high. This is a nice squeeze going into mid-May. It held higher lows, and it was trying to go one more time. This is a very healthy long-term chart. So here's the catch-22. Bad news came out. This thing's tanking. There's selling pressure. That's primarily the direction that we want to follow. This is a great short opportunity. It was one. Definitely still could be one even as of right now at 12:35 p.m. Eastern this afternoon. But when you have a very healthy long-term chart and there's one headline that comes out, it kind of makes you ask, like, Is it an overblown reaction? Are we going to get a bounce? Where will or where could we get a bounce from? I mean, hey, when this dropped instantly, this was down like 17, 19%, I think, before it was 7:30 in the morning or 7:45 in the morning. How often, let me ask everyone here, Ishan, Debbie, John, Gillis, all of us here, how frequent do you see a name brand company down 19, 17, 20 plus percent overnight? How often? Pretty rare, right? Pretty rare. That would be a good, kind of quick worded answer to say. Like, pretty rare, not too often. If a company has horrible earnings or really excellent earnings, they can make a strong pop or drop either way. But it's just not as frequent. So it's a catch 22 because, hey, for as much as we know this company, Hims, we're like, ooh, Hims, I see them on the TV commercials every now and then. Or like, oh, I've seen Hims on the internet a lot. A lot of people talking about it. Or you might look at us in our trading room. Oh, Josh and Fausto talking about Hims again. They've been on that for a little while. Well, true. Yeah, it's a stock and a company that's been around a bit recently. They've made some great strides in their product, and it reflects in the chart. Could I ask everyone here just a quick question? Does Who here knows the CEO? Just really quick. Do you know the CEO of this company? Yes or no? Just yes or no, real quick. Yes or no. Do you know the CEO of this company? Okay. A lot of us saying no. I don't think anyone wrote yes yet. Next question. Do you know off the top of your head what their last earnings report was? Off the top of your head. Don't go into Benzinga Pro. I'm not trying to look for that answer. But just off the top of your head. Answer is no, right? Sam says it was good. All right, fair enough. I mean, it reflects in the chart. But unless if you know the company like the back of your hand, it's really tough to trust this trend when the news comes out. So what you do want to trust is the levels, but what happens when the stock is not making that bounce that you're looking for? What happens when that level, well, maybe it held the first time, but it keeps getting poked at, it keeps getting tested, and on the way down, that is. Well, the more times that happens, support's going to break. So there is a bit of a catch 22 here where, hey, we know this company, and yeah, we could all sit here and agree it's a healthy chart, but hey, we don't know how overblown or underblown of a news story this really is. I'm not a pharmacist, I'm not a chemist, I don't know shit about Wegovy. But what I do know is my levels. So what I was interested in here this morning was to have a bounce, and I was looking right around 51.20-ish or so. Sent my guy Rich here a little chat on the side. I was prepping up myself this morning, so I told him to write. Hims has a historical area at 51.20 to roughly 52. Just basically that area that I wanted to see hold as support. Just kind of 1, 2 right here, right? So in pre-market, when this started dropping, I'm instantly getting the itch. I'm just thinking here right away, like, ooh, okay, well, what if it comes into this and holds? This is extremely dangerous, first off. Like, you always hear me tell you, like, oh, you want to focus on stocks that are tradable. Yes, absolutely. There's probably better opportunities than this, regardless if this does bounce or not, based on liquidity. This is an awful order book now, let alone in pre-market. It was crazy. Let me ask us here really briefly as well. In pre-market trading, what are we missing in pre-market that we need to have when the market opens up? Stop orders, right? All of us saying Gillis, Carey, Margaret, stop orders. Absolutely. So you don't have stop orders in pre-market and you're trying to catch a falling knife. Bit of a dangerous game, my friends. So this was definitely more of like a category 5 type of setup to even look for the bounce. But then obviously once the selling pressure continues, it's more likely to keep dropping there. So, this became a good bounce area at first, broke below this at first, broke back over it, just like we always preach, under and over. So that's where I wrote to you earlier in the morning, just when I logged in at 8:30, I told him, like, yeah, I caught a pretty good bounce on this, roughly from 50, 51, and it moved up pretty nicely. I ended up getting out, where is it? Like around 50, 53.35 I got out right here. You're either looking for continuation very quickly, a nice V-shaped recovery, or, hey, maybe this is not an overblown reaction. Maybe this is a very well timed reaction here. And if we're not going to get that big sling going up, that V shaped recovery, then the more times that this keeps poking this area, this is doomed. So that's exactly what happened. No surprise that this dropped down a lot more afterwards. And I wrote that to you inside our trading room. I wrote to you just at 8:17 in the morning. Actually, it was a little early. I logged in, but I said to you at 8:17 in the morning, caught a pretty good bounce on HIMS roughly from 50. It's like 50 and some change, but coming back down now, lower low from here likely means it's going towards 46. Why? Why is that? Well, we'll look at bookmap in a moment. We'll do that in just a bit. But what happens if it breaks through this giant support? Where's our next support? I don't know on this. This looks terrible. As far as the next support level, it's very difficult. And it's because of how much it squeezed here back into late April, early May. This made such a good move that it did not build support here in this sequence. It did here at 51, 52. But what happens when that support level gets broken? You know what I mean? You tell me. So that's where I was telling you at least, well, I guess the next area that I thought maybe potentially could be a level, it was a resistance that it broke over, right around here, loosely speaking, around 46, a little under right there, pretty much. Well, I would then need to see 46 act as support, but that doesn't mean that it can't go lower, right? So a lower low from that first area likely means it's going down towards 46. And then obviously we ended up getting just that a short while afterwards. By the time the market opened up, there was our move. But the same thing happened at 46 as it happened at 51. So if you're looking for the bounce, it's a lot tougher to do that here. Obviously, not only because bad news came out seemingly, but this is riding a severe downtrend. Regardless of news, regardless of percentage, when this number is red, there's likely selling pressure kicking in. So if you're not getting that big reaction, even if you take a trade from here, okay, it starts off good. You actually had the chance to make some money, but you got to learn to fold the deck, especially because this has been making lower highs the whole time. So this has been an incredible short. I just want to point out that it had a very healthy long-term chart. So it is reasonable, while you have a healthy long-term chart, for you to try and look for a bounce, but you got to accept the terms, the terms and agreement, right? When you go on a website, you sign the terms and agreement contract, you got to scroll through all that bullshit. Well, hey, the terms and agreement here is if this isn't making V-shaped recovery and popping real big, then good chance this continues down. Hey, for every bull, there's a bear. For as healthy of a long-term chart as this has been, this actually has been one of the most heaviest shorted stocks in the market, especially before the early May squeeze. I think it was like a 34, 33% short float. So shorts were getting murdered. They were getting destroyed on this squeeze. But it was still being shorted over time. And I guess they got lucky with the news that came out. But when that happens, hey, if this ain't making that big V-shaped recovery, if the bulls are not going to regain control, don't wait for them to. Case in point, don't just wait for them to, because the more times this support level kept getting peppered and poked here, it's only going to flip into resistance, right? Look exactly what happened here. This area, it's both of them together, but that area of support, once it breaks below support and it drops fast, it runs from broken support, that's where that should flip, rightfully so, into resistance. So now at this stage, where the hell is HIMS going to next? It's down over 33% today. It's really tough to use the daily chart now at this point because there's nothing here. If you're looking at past resistance, you're going to have to look all the way back at 35. This was really clean. That would be support, but it's a ways away still. Let's take a look on Bookmap. We talked about those $10 levels. So maybe on HIMS at $40, there could be some sort of iceberg. All right, there's something about 38,000 on the bid. Where's our next order on the bid at below 40? our next larger, somewhat respectable order, I would zoom in a little bit there. Yeah, I would focus on this. You don't want to go all the way down. That's a little excessive. So after 40 breaks, your next somewhat decent support is maybe even 35. After that, 30. There's $5 levels there. So all right. So let me know, folks, if you have any questions regarding the two trades that we covered here so far. Oh, more than two at least, but we covered just before Tesla, and then we just covered the HIMS trade. If you have any follow-ups on those two, just let me know. All right. What do we got going on here? We got some stuff going on right now, guys, about geopolitical stuff. We got some Israel-Iran stuff going on here. All right, give me a quick sec. Let me just jump to my news feed right now. Not even Benzinga Pro. I got this like Twitter account I'll jump on every now and then. Like they post pretty good news in relation to like normal or macro events basically that happen. Yeah, all sorts of stuff happening right now. Okay, so pardon me here. Iran is preparing to fire missiles at American bases in the coming minutes. They launched 6 missiles towards U.S. bases in Qatar. Oh, yeah. All sorts of shit going on right now. Air defense system activated in the U.S. at an air base in Iraq for fear of potential attack. So that came out probably about, like 7 minutes ago even, and I'm sure there was some sell-off prior to the actual statement coming out. But that's a nice recovery here to even begin. So for as much as we did just drop here, I got to say, this is the type of V-shape that you would want to see, at least from those trades like HIMS that bottomed out before, but it just never really made that recovery. Now, here's the kicker, though. Do we just go back up? Is this an overreaction? Or is this just the beginning of a further lower low to set off later on today? So let me just jump right now to the SPY 5-minute chart. Not a fan of that there from the end of last week into today, just lower highs all the way through. So I'm just shooting from the hip here on a real small low time frame. But if it starts to come back up and above this, then maybe there's a better chance for a little bit more. But it wouldn't shock me if this pulls back a little bit right now. Botch that there. One moment. Here we go. All right. So let's say things get really bad out there between Israel, Iran, the United States, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We are not talking opinions here right now. We're just talking about charts. So this is where I'll tell you, if the shit hits the fan and then we start dropping off quite a bit, listen, in bull markets, we've seen 5-7% corrections on the SPY, and that's healthy. That's like normal. So let me just show this here really briefly. SPY trading at like 595. Talk about a 5% drop off. A 5% drop on the SPY, if it were to be trading at $595, a 5% drop takes you down to about 565 and change. Let me tell you how well that matches this chart here. So again, I'm just shooting from the hip here. I'm talking out my ass with a made-up number, but let's just say shit goes really bad, with Israel, Iran, war, United States, et cetera, market crashes. A 5% pullback is not excessive. We've seen that happen quite a bit over the last year and a half, even with the market continuing to push to highs, even just before in April, obviously, right? But let's say if that just happens. All right, 5%. Why is that so important? We talked about this in previous workshops here with Traders Talk because we've only been seeing the SPY kind of hover here a little higher, but we got a big old gap to fill back from Friday, May 9th into Monday, May 12th. I remember this like the back of my hand, the weekend gap. We were looking for the fill of it. Basically, I nicknamed this. Oh, no, that was the other one. That was the other one. Well, this gap still essentially became what we would normally kind of call like a power earnings gap. And it actually didn't fill this gap. It actually held, support pretty well over time from a little higher and then moved up. Well, if things go really bad really soon and the market collapses here, a 5% drop would time perfectly with a full completion of this gap. So listen, I'm not rooting for that to happen, but I'm very aware of what's on the chart in case if the markets want to roll over really badly here this week, next month, etc. So We shall see what comes of this, at least here at the new development with the U.S. Air bases or bases getting attacked in Qatar. Yeah. All right, so that's pretty much what's going on right now. At least Reuters citing a witness says explosions heard over Qatar capital. Says Chris. Yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, so that is just where we'll keep our eyes on this 565 in case if things really drop off a bit. All right, let's go through, if we have enough time here before we wrap up, I want to just go through some emails that may have come in here just before. So um, give me a moment, give me a moment, give me a moment. All right, so I wanted to go over this because I was a little delayed on writing them back, and I wrote them back this morning, like in full. But I figured, it's good enough here for Traders Talk, and I want to just address it for everyone here. And you've heard me say the word "them," so I'm trying to keep this anonymized here. This email from one of our students. So one of our students had sent over an email on Thursday, uh, basically saying they wanted to take the time to capture the information from their journal just so they could send it to me. So I really appreciated them doing that. Basically, in summation, what they wrote to me was as follows: I am not sure what I am missing. There are days that I had good trades, but most of the time, my one trade had taken me so down, negating the positive results from other 3 to 4 trades before that point. The overall effect is that I am not yet making money. So, first and foremost, really quickly, I'm not naming this person. I want them to remain anonymized just for the sake of knowing that, hey, you could always come to me with these types of questions. And even if I address it publicly in Traders Talk, and I'm not going to name student, right? But who has ever had that? Who has had that happen to them even recently, within the last month? Has anyone here in the last month hit like a slump, a day or two, a week or two, where hey, you have a number of trades, and all it took was one loser just to wipe it all out? Bunch of us. John, all right, see that there? Gillis, Lynn, Wiz, Dan, Elizabeth, Debbie. A lot of us here, right? Publicly just answering this here in our group workshop. So happens to all of us, or at least it's happened to all of us at some point in time or another. Now, let me just go back to the email here just so I could finish up and I'll give you my full thought. Um, so they attached their journal basically. And I'm going to go over one talking point on it. That's all. But, I wrote them back on it. They said that, we introduced them to day trading. And at the moment that they are just a bronze member, do you think that I'm missing out since I do not have access to phase two? Would it improve my performance? So on and so forth. So I did talk about that on the side with my student here. And, not to sound like a broken record player, also not to sound like a salesman here. I shoot straight, right? You are missing out on a very good chunk of our material by not upgrading to at least phase two, let alone phase three. But if you do get phase three, like if you're a gold student, you get one-on-one coaching, right? I know for pretty much almost all of my students that are gold and above, I've worked with you, just, Wiz, Abdul, Charlene, you got Debbie, John, Lynn, you got Wiz, you got Ishen here. We'll set one up this week there, Ishen. And pretty much all of us I've spoken to, I'm already working with. So that's where I know that you've been in those shoes as well. But this is where my solution comes in 2 separate parts. And for the trade that they sent me their full journal, the students. So I really appreciated them doing that. Basically, they wanted me to go over like the one trade that knocked them off the horse, basically saying like, well, why is this always happening? Why, do I have this one trade that is setting me 3 or 4 steps back when I'm going, 2 or 3 steps forward? So this trade, I'll just go over it. It was on USEG, and I think this was on Thursday, right? It was on the 18th there. Oh no, it was on Wednesday because we were off Thursday, right? Yeah, it was on Wednesday the 18th. We were off on the 19th, right? So there we go. Makes sense. Let's just jump back here. We'll go through it. So my entry or my thought process here on this comes in 2 separate parts. A, if you're encountering a loss that is setting you back quite a bit, my question would then be, are you setting a stop? The answer should be yes. So my question should be, how fast are we setting the stop? But if this is a consistent issue, that's where I'm going to just point blank ask, are you even setting the stop? right? And that is something I talk about a lot in the phase two stock course. And I mean it. There's a whole 60-minute class I teach here. I'm going to do it again going into July this upcoming month, setting stops and taking profits, talking about, putting your seatbelt on. Not to make it touchy feely right now, but I'm going to make it touchy feely right now. Let's pretend anyone here, me, you, if you're on YouTube, you as well. Let's say you're going out to dinner later with your family, right? You got the kids, you got the mister, you got the missus, you got the grandkids maybe in there, whomever. Are you going to wait until you're on the expressway going 70 miles per hour down before you are like, hey, guys, can you put your seatbelt on? Hey, honey, can you put your seatbelt on? Or are you going to put it on when you're in the driveway? Are you going to put it on when you're starting the car, right? As you're like next to your house. So the case in point is that you want to make sure that you're protecting yourself. Because I can't imagine any one of us here be like, yeah, I'll wait till I'm like 80 miles per hour down the road. It's all right, honey. Put your seatbelt on then. Don't really worry too much about you. It's all good. Right? I can't imagine any one of us is like that. So I like to relate it in that way because although we don't have our physical lives on the line, well, hey, we have our fiscal lives on the line, our monetary lives on the line, right? Money. So we want to have that seatbelt on ASAP, immediately once we start this car up. Meaning, once we jump in the trade, we want to put that thing on immediately. So that's the first thing I'll mention. And I spoke to my student about this on the side. So, I know that they were just discussing with me, like they got to learn how to set that stop very quickly because it will help them avoid that situation where you're going two steps forward, then three steps back. And that three steps is really all in one trade, right? It's not like this trader here is telling me they're losing like 5 out of 6 times. They might be losing 2 out of 6 times, but the two are negating the 4 wins. So you are going, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, even if it's just one loss that you're encountering. So let's just go into the full trade though of this, and I'll kind of give the specifics. So they got in, this was on the morning of the 18th. So, all right. So right away, this was moving up well the day before. So that's a good sign, right? It's going up. So there's buying. There's likely some buying, point here. Maybe, if I were to be so quick to estimate here, maybe right around here, a big spike of volume. I don't know. I'm just going to shoot from the hip there and just say that. It failed to hold over that as support going into the afternoon this day, but it crawled back up, moving back up. Nice. Now, this is all before the next day where this trader jumps in. So that's a good start because, hey, it's still trending upward a bit here, right? Now, this is pre-market. This is all before the market opens up, and it's just lower highs, kind of pulling back, not really doing great right away. Now, it starts to, though. It makes a move eventually here at 9:43, 9:45 in the morning. Okay, it's breaking back up here, and I just put a real sloppy line on this chart from the day before. So this might not be fully, correct to the penny. But point being is that, hey, it's actually breaking above this resistance. Hey, it's actually running from this resistance. Maybe that resistance could become support, right? Now, this is where exactly, okay, this is a nice spot here, actually, just from this one sloppy line I drew, granted. I don't have bookmap on this exactly for this one, but I just want to point out, hey, this ends up coming down to test this as support. It makes my famed under and over move starts off like it starts to bounce a little bit. All right, nice. If there's so much buying right here, if there's so much buying where, we had a breakout the day before, I'm just kind of using that as a quick reference here. Big spike, nice little top here, broke out. All right, so like maybe this area 220-ish could be support then, right? Well, it starts to, but if there's that much buying pressure, not only will it hold as support the first time, which it does, it's good here, it's going to bounce back up. It's going to fly. It's going to make a better move here at this point. So, that's the part that it fails to do. So the entry on this, I think, was at a little bit afterwards, unfortunately. So I see this was at, oh, actually, you know what? Pardon me. I got to go back here on this one. So for my student here, remaining unnamed, my apologies. They jumped in on this initially at like 9:48 the time. So it was after it broke this little area, but it seems like they may have jumped in a little afterwards with the entry. They got in at the time 9:48 to begin. And then I think that they had to buy a little bit more to average down on this to begin. So they bought a little bit more at the price 220. All right at 10:07. All right, that's a level. That's something that we were just focused on. So the second portion of their entry is like really clean. The first part was chasing it a good extent, in just in the sense of yesterday's move. Uh, entry price was at $2.39 on the first part of it. Well, at this point, with it already moving up from here, I'm either waiting for support to build or I'll wait for the next resistance to get broken over instead. So when you're here, I'll wait for support to get tested or I'll wait for the next resistance to try and get broken over. But that's at least for the first part of your trade. The second half of the entry was actually spot on in relation to the volume from the day before. But this just goes back to what we had said. For the first half of the trade, we need to have the stop set very tight underneath. We don't want to even wait for this to happen. So even on the first half, the entry aside, you just want to have a tight stop. But then even for the second half, same rules apply there. It looks like they got out at the price 215. So not too bad on the exit on the second portion of it. Here's the kicker, though. Two things on this. And I just want to make this known for all of our students here, right? So setting the stop on the first half of the trade, you got to set that stop immediately. That goes to anyone. I don't care if you think that you're the world's greatest trader out there, if you think you're one of the top, you need to be setting your stop. Because and I know you're going to get caught slipping, you're going to get your ass whipped on a trade, and I don't think you're going to be as quick to post that, in the room like you do all the profits. So that's where I'll tell you, at least you got to have that stop immediately set. Now, that's just where I'll say on the flip side, though, okay, and this is where I'm real. We're going to finish off in just a moment and keeping this trader anonymous, of course, because this could be anyone. This could be, Jim, Bill, Adam, Mary, whomever. I'm giving fake names in a room, by the way. But it's just to say, though, that if you are emailing me this here with this dialogue, that it seems like you're kind of having this consistent issue where there are days that you have good trades, but most of the time, my one trade has taken me so down, negating positive results. I'm reading this word for word, and it says most of the time. It seems like this is not the first time this is happening, right? If we are more inconsistent than we are consistent, we probably shouldn't be trading 1,000 shares of this stock. I know it's cheap stock. You could if you want, right? You might have a decent enough account size, do 1,000 shares. This stock has good spread, good order book. At least here today it does. But even here, I'm going to assume it does here as it moved up. So it's probably had penny spread, good order size. It was tradable, I'm sure. If you are acknowledging yourself as you're writing me this email that this happens most of the time, then we should not be at 1,000 shares. We need to be trading smaller so we can gain the confidence with setting our stop, knowing that, hey, if you get taken out on a trade, you're not going to lose as much since you're not trading as much. Are you going to be making as much, profiting as much if you're not trading as much? Of course not. But if this is something that you yourself are acknowledging in an email to me, you're typing, the English language to me here saying that this happens most of the time, then we need to scale back so we avoid these situations exactly. Because I know if this was on less shares, you wouldn't be as upset about the loss, the pain. It wouldn't be as so painful of a drop, right? When you start finding your footing and you're saying, "Ooh, this is working out more often than not. Ooh, I'm setting my stop and it just saved my ass here. Oh my God, that was good." When you're realizing that what you're doing is working out more often than not, then we should be trading more size, right? Because you had a good entry on the second half of the trade, but you were already down a lot on the first half on 1,000 shares, down like $200. So it's definitely going to be painful, right? So I just want to point that out, but that doesn't just go to my student here that wrote me on the side. This is for everyone here. I don't care, if you're joining our trading room, how much experience you got coming into little CTU here. Unless if you yourself are already someone who is a consistently profitable day trader, notice how I'm using those words. Unless if you are someone already who has extensive experience day trading stocks and success with making money, not just doing it. If you make money day trading stocks coming into CTU, you're probably a couple steps ahead of the curve. But if you've been doing this for 20, 30 years as an investor, and this is your first time stepping into the day trading realm or first time going through a program that actually teaches you how to day trade, you should not be trading large size. I don't care if this is cheap or not. You shouldn't be trading that many shares to begin because you're going to fall off the bicycle to begin, right? The more times you fall off the bicycle, you become a little discouraged once you realize how painful those cuts and burns and scrapes are. We want to at least reduce the amount of cuts and burns and scrapes as we're at least falling off the bicycle. Meaning, hey, we're going to take losing trades every now and then, right? We all do. Like me, Fausto, the world's greatest trader, whomever that may or may not be. But that's just where you got to set the stop and you have to know what works out more often than not. Because there might be a stock that I love, hymns from earlier here, trying to catch a balance. Ooh, ah. Well, hey, like price aside, with as volatile as this is, I was only doing this on 250 shares, right? And that's like pre-market too. I probably should have even been trading less. But just point being is that you don't want to put yourself in too volatile of a scenario for yourself, for you as a trader. So we're all here in this together, but a lot of us here have been doing this for 3 years, 5 years with experience and success making money with us. There are some people that have been doing this for 3 months, 6 months, and they are on that path. They're on the right track, and they know what to look for, and they have been gaining the confidence within their own abilities. But you don't know who's doing what. And if you just joined us here, you don't know who's been at this for years. You don't know who's been at this for weeks. So don't compare yourself to any one of us in our room. This is a one-person race. It's you versus yourself. So that's where, at least in our classes, we're going to wrap up on this here in just a bit, but in our classes, that's what we focus on. Starting off small, then working our way up as you gain confidence, right? All right, folks. Hey, we are going to wrap up at least for right now. For Rob, for Patrick, for all of us here just joining us on the YouTubes, the social media here this afternoon. Hey, we appreciate your participation, your attendance. Right down below, right below my ugly mug, you got the button, right, even below this banner here. At Cyber Trading U is our social handle on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, whatever that is known as now, even TikTok. We don't dance for you there, but we're here to educate. Just make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you may be. But even further, though, at Cyber Trading U, that's our main YouTube channel. So, we stream live each and every weekday there, Monday to Friday. We do live audio commentary. Every Monday we're on here. We do a live workshop. We got podcasts 1 to 2 times a week. Tomorrow and Wednesday we got live workshop on Thursday as well. 35+ year pro Fausto Pugliese, of course, at the helm there. But otherwise, we look forward to having you join us exclusively inside our live trading room. Just for right now, we got Gillis, Scott Farzad, Margaret, Sam, you got Joe, you got Chuck, you got James, Uday, you got Lee, Patrick, Alan, Joyce, Brian, Debbie, Andrew, Michael, Mark, Bill, 120 of us here just joining us live right now. Always appreciate you. And we'll be back later on for them just inside our trading room. But if you wanted to join us just in our room, go right down to the link scrolling down on the bottom in blue right there. ctu.co/trial. You shall see it coming up in just a bit. Got a long amount of text right there, so you'll see it popping up right there. ctu.co/trial. Make sure to go right to that link to join us for a week-long trial, just to test our room out, seeing if this is for you or not for you. But otherwise, folks, we'll be back later on this afternoon, and we'll go from there. Take care.